I would like to acknowledge the land of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people of the Kulin Nation, the land of which this conference is going to be run from. I would also like to acknowledge that many of us are zooming in from different lands across this incredible nation. We acknowledge all their elders, past and present, and we acknowledge their future generations coming through. And we are excited also to include all Indigenous people who are participating in the conference over the next week. And we recognise that across the globe, many places, the sovereignty was never ceded.
And my name is Theresa Meier, and I represent the company Conference Exchange, also known as Confex. We are providing the software that manages and records all of the presentations in the meeting rooms. The name of our software is called Podium. So we will frequently refer to the tall box in front of the meeting room as a lectern, so as not to confuse everybody. Podium is our software. And we have integrated Podium with Zoom to run these fully hybrid meetings. So it's all in one package. And that's where you all come into play, is to help us in assisting with the Zoom technology. There's some intricacies that are important for you to know. Before we get started though, Sally, I'm going to try to share something in the chat. I know we did this last time.
Link for it and pop it in the chat during this session.
Perfect. Okay, so just to set the scene for you, all of you will be sitting at a head table. Well, not all of you. Each one of you will be sitting at a head table next to the lectern in the meeting rooms. And we also hope that as you're sitting there, you will be bringing your own personal device with you besides just a phone. So if you have a laptop or a tablet to bring with you to these sessions, that's really preferred. Because what we're going to have you do is we're going to have you join the Zoom on your own personal device, in addition to what's being joined at the lectern, because we want you to monitor the Zoom as a virtual attendee. And you'll be using the chat in the Zoom on your own personal device to communicate with our virtual tech support that's in the Zoom. In case they see any weird issues pop up, they can communicate with you in the chat. And if you see anything weird come up, then you can communicate with them. And we're going to ask you, when you join that Zoom on your own personal device, to rename yourself as volunteer and then the room number. So for instance, if you were over at the Crown, it would be volunteer M8 or volunteer P1, for instance. Those are some names of the meeting rooms over at the Crown. There's two different ways that you can join the Zoom on your own personal device. One is you have the meeting app for ISA on your device, either in a browser or if you're on a tablet or a phone, on the app, on the meeting app. Once you are in the meeting program on the meeting app, you would search by meeting calendar, find your day, find your session, and 20 minutes before each session begins, a Join Now button will appear next to that session. And all you do is simply click on the Join Now button and it brings you right into the Zoom. Now you do have to know the credentials that you used to register for the meeting to get into the meeting app. So you got to remember that same email and that same password. If for some reason you were having trouble getting on the meeting app and joining the Zoom on your own personal device by using the Join Now buttons on the meeting app, there is an alternative way you can get into the get into the Zoom. And I can show you that in just a few minutes. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole now. What I'd like to do is I'd like to just get started with showing you our presentation management system and showing you how it integrates with Zoom and the few pieces of the few technical aspects that you're going to need to know. Does everyone see the Zoom cheat sheet in the chat that Sally has posted? If you can just open that up for me, that would be really helpful so that you can follow along. I think it will be easier for you to take a look at it. So one of the things that you'll notice that I have at the top is before you join Zoom on the lectern laptop, we're asking you to just take a quick look through the presentation files that are in your session. Now, really, the only people that are really going to have time to do this are the people that are going to get there 30 minutes before the start of the morning session, because otherwise you guys are only going to have 10 minutes between your sessions. So I completely understand if you do not have time to look at these presentation files before your session begins. It's not top priority. It's only if you have time. Okay, so that's the first thing that you're going to do is take a look at the presentation files, and the way that if you can, and the way that you would do that is you simply, let's see. Oops, sorry. Okay. So the way that you would do that is you simply just click on the presentation slot, and then you'll get a page that says, please wait, your presentation is loading. This takes just a couple of seconds. If you notice in the top left corner, there's a number there. It counts down for you. It usually never even gets past 3. It just takes a couple of seconds to open. So now here your presentation is open. You can see that it has opened successfully. And then you would just hit escape to get out of it. Once you hit escape, it brings you to this screen where you can just click next presentation and it will take you right to the next presentation. Or you can see on the right-hand side, it'll say return to session display, and that would take you back to here. Okay. But again, I really don't want you guys to have to get worked up about previewing all of these presentation files within that short 10-minute time period that you have in between your sessions. Okay, so it's going to be mostly for the people in the morning who have a lot of time when they've arrived 30 minutes prior to the session starting, or for the people who are ending the sessions at the end of the day. We're going to ask them to look at presentation files for the next day. Okay, so now we're going to start the Zoom. Okay, so to do that, you're just going to click on the Join Zoom button at the bottom of the page. As soon as you do that, you're going to receive a message that tells you the meeting is being recorded, and you just click continue. From here, you're going to go to the toolbar where it says chat and click on the little caret next to the chat icon and just click on show chat previews so that it deselects that option, so that when somebody sends a chat, it doesn't show a little bubble at the bottom of the screen that everyone would see. Now, our Convex virtual tech support is going to be the host of the meeting, and they will have already started the Zoom, on the other side of the world, of course. You guys are the ones that are going to start it on site, but they will have already opened up the Zoom for everyone, and they're going to turn on live transcriptions. So you may see a message fly across the screen that says live transcription has been enabled. So just please click the X next to that message to close that message box. Okay. From there, you're going to click share screen. Once you share screen, it's going to bring your toolbar to the top of the screen. We call that the floating meeting toolbar. you're going to click on Start Video. And then you'll go over to More, which is on the right-hand side of that floating meeting toolbar, and it brings you a drop-down menu. And you're going to click on Hide Video Panel. What this does is it prevents that film strip of all of the cameras showing up on the screen. Okay? Once you've done that, you can go ahead and just leave the camera on. Okay? But you're still muted. Don't unmute yourself, because otherwise the virtual audience will hear every conversation happening at the lectern. But you can go ahead and leave the camera on. The next step that you're going to do is we're going to go back to the More button and share sound. So that if someone has a pre-recorded presentation, which there are going to be, maybe a dozen or so of those for presenters who can't show up and they can't present remotely for whatever reason. But we want to make sure that their pre-recorded presentation will be heard by the virtual audience. And in order to do that, we need to choose Share Sound under More. Okay, the last thing that we're going to choose under More is Hide Floating Meeting Controls. And that's going to make that whole floating meeting controls disappear. Okay. Next, we're going to run the walk-in loop. And to do that, you just click on the film strip on the bottom of the session page. And that starts our walk-in loop, which includes a slide of acknowledgement of country. And this will be timed and it will loop itself. So the acknowledgement of country, I still haven't put a timer on it, but it's probably going to be at least 10 seconds. And then it will advance automatically to the next slide, which will be social media, which will just be a few seconds because that will be easy for people to read. So this is information here about joining the Zoom on your own personal device. I recommend that you join the Zoom on the lectern laptop first, because clearly that's priority. We want to make sure that the virtual audience is aware of what's going on in the meeting room and gets to be part of the meeting. And if you have any issues at the lectern laptop, we'll know about it immediately. So join that first and then get on your own personal device and join the Zoom. And you can use, like I said, the meeting app to do so by clicking on the Join Now buttons in the appropriate session. And that'll take you right into the Zoom.
Tracy, can I just interrupt you there for a moment? So in terms of what the volunteers will need to do once they've done the steps that you've outlined just up until the point prior to this slide, does that mean that that's all they need to do as far as the lectern is concerned, or do they need to wait for something else to happen?
So that's everything that you will do for your setup at the laptop, at the lectern laptop.
Okay.
Yep. So as soon as you get to running the walk-in loop, that's when you want to start the Zoom on your own device. Now, since we are only going to have 10 minutes in between each session, you're probably going to have just enough time to do all of those little configurations that I just mentioned, turn on the walk-in loop, start your Zoom on your own personal device, and then probably at that point, the chair is probably going to want to start the session. Because like I said, 10 minutes is just, it's going to be so short, particularly if the last session ran over by a couple of minutes.
The only other thing, Tracy, that you mentioned in the first training session was for the volunteer to adjust the screen, and you can do that on your laptop because you're visual right now. Adjust the laptop lid or screen.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. So one thing that you'll want to to be paying attention to is tall and short presenters and how they look in the virtual audience. So as soon as you join the Zoom on your own personal device, the camera will be on the lectern laptop. So you'll be able to see what the virtual audience is going to see. So if you see that there's a presenter that's 6 feet tall and you've got a up the nose shot or a chin shot, just reach over, and I do expect you to be sitting right next to the lectern. Reach over to the laptop lid and just gently move it back and forth to adjust so that at least their face is in the screen, is in the shot. And I do want you to also, you can join audio on your own personal device, but only if you are using headphones. If you did not bring any headphones with you, do not join audio. So when you join on your own personal device, the first thing that you're going to do is either decline joining audio, or have your headphones in and you can join audio, but don't ever unmute yourself and don't ever turn on your camera on your own device. And then rename yourself in the participant panel to volunteer 107, volunteer P1, whatever your room number is.
Can I ask a question, Tracy?
Yep.
If they don't have headphones, will they still be able to tell what the audio is like for the
No.
virtual participants?
No, they won't.
So if
But
ideally,
if there's an issue, ideally you want to have headphones, yes. And if there is an issue with the audio, let's say if you don't have a pair of headphones, if there's an issue with the audio, the virtual tech is going to chat you immediately and say, we can't hear anything. So I'm going to get to the next step in a minute, because so far we're still muted at the lectern laptop because we're still running the walk-in loop and we're waiting for the chair to begin the session. So we've done our technical setup in Zoom. We've started the walk-in loop and we've joined Zoom on our own device. I did tell you earlier that I was going to give you another way to find or to join the Zoom besides using the meeting app. If for some reason you are having trouble getting on the meeting app because you can't remember your credentials or whatever it may be, if you go over to the lectern laptop, on the screen, you'll see a little green shield, and you should be able to see it on your own computer right now. It's usually in the top left corner. There's a little green shield, and you can just click on it, and it will give you the meeting ID and the passcode. You can also click on your toolbar and click on more, and it will sit, and there'll be an option for meeting info, and it gives you the meeting ID and passcode. So on your own personal device, if you can't join the meeting app so that you can click a join now button, open up a browser to zoom.us and click join a meeting, and it will ask you for the meeting ID and passcode. And that information can be retrieved from that little green shield or the more button in the toolbar on the lectern laptop. So one of the key roles that you're going to play as a volunteer is being in communication with our Convex virtual tech support. So they're going to reach out to you if the camera's not turned on, if the microphone is muted, if there's a strange noise in the audio that they can hear but we can't hear on site, if they can't hear the pre-recorded presentations. You guys are the liaison. You guys are direct communication with how we solve any technical problems on site. So if you yourself have any problems on site, you're going to chat the virtual tech, and it will say Convex Virtual Tech. Just chat them and say, hey, we're having a problem with the Zoom, and let them know what it is. And then they're going to contact us. If they can't resolve the issue themselves or tell you how to resolve it, then they're going to contact us on site.
When
Okay.
they do, sorry, Tracy, when they do that, do they need to put their room number in?
No, because they will have renamed themselves volunteer P1,
Of course.
volunteer M7. Yep.
Yep.
So that's the reason that we ask you to rename yourself with the room number, volunteer room number, because a lot of times you're in a hurry, right? And maybe you've even come from another session. You can't even, you're stressed out. You don't even remember what room you're in, you know? And this way, that information is already going to be given. Okay. Let's see what's next here on the slide. Okay, so this is just giving you information on how to join the Zoom on your own personal device if you cannot join it through the meeting app. But we all do hope that you download the meeting app or practice logging into the meeting app on our meeting program on a browser right away, as soon as you get to the conference, so that you can also navigate through the program for your own personal reasons. Okay, so beginning the session, which may happen immediately after you join Zoom on your own device. Maybe it even happens before you even have a chance to do that because it's running late. Okay, all you're going to do is just before the chair begins speaking, you're going to click Alt-A, and that will unmute the Zoom mic. And as you know, as we talked about before, your camera's already on, so you don't have to worry about that. You just have to worry about unmuting yourself, which is clicking Alt-A on the lectern laptop. Then you'd go over to your own device, inspect the Zoom participant panel, and make sure Convex Podium, that's the name of the lectern laptop, is Convex Podium, is unmuted. And you'll know that because there won't be a line through the microphone. So if you had some issue with clicking Alt-A, which I haven't seen any issues with it, an alternative way to unmute yourself is you have to bring that floating meeting toolbar back to the screen. And to do that, you would click Escape twice. And then you would click on the microphone icon that had a line through it. And once you click on it, it will unmute the microphone. Now, if you do use that method by clicking twice to bring back the floating meeting controls to unmute yourself, remember you will have to go back to the More button in that floating meeting controls and hide the floating meeting controls, because otherwise it's going to cover up data on the slides, and it will show up in the recording as well. So we've unmuted ourselves and the walk-in loop is still running. The chair is going to read the acknowledgement of country from the walk-in loop. Now, the walk-in loop will be set to loop continuously, but it will also be set to advance on click. So what the chair is going to want to do is, even if they're ready to get started and the acknowledgement of country slide is on the screen, they'll want to advance past it and then past the social media slide to return to the acknowledgement of country slide so that it begins that timer all over again. Because they don't want to start speaking halfway through that timer and then they missed it. They couldn't get through the whole thing. So if they just advance all the way back to the back to the first slide, then they'll be at the beginning of their timer and we'll be able to get through the whole thing. Sally, feel free to interrupt me at any point if I should review something or.
You're going okay, but I
Okay.
probably should have asked you at the beginning, are you okay if people unmute themselves and interrupt and ask questions where needed?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. So when they are finished reading the acknowledgement of country, they will simply hit escape just one time. Because if you remember, if they hit escape twice, it brings back that floating meeting toolbar. So if they just hit escape once, it brings us back to the session display page, and they simply just click on the presentation title to launch the presentation. So they click on the presentation title, and you can see down here, see this that says Zoom in progress? That tells you that you haven't left the Zoom. The Zoom is still there. Okay. So they click on the presentation title. It brings up the page that says, please wait, your presentation is loading. And again, that's just 2 to 3 seconds, if that, depending upon maybe how heavy their presentation is, like with videos or something. Okay, and there's their presentation. When you're finished with the presentation, you hit escape. Just hit escape once, and it brings you back to our lovely white screen where you can just click next presentation. And if there's a remote presenter or a pre-recorded presentation, that will also be listed underneath the author's last name on the session display page and on this white screen. So if it was a pre-recorded presentation, or if it was another on-site presenter, you would simply click next presentation. If it happened to say remote underneath their last name, you will want to return to the session display page. You will return to the session display page, and then you will click escape twice so that you can bring that floating meeting toolbar back to the screen so that you can stop your share, your screen share, so that the remote presenter can then share their screen. So once you get everything set up in the meeting, you know, the share sound and the, you know, turning on the video camera and hiding the video panel and starting your walk-in loop, the things that you're going to have to think about after that are remote presenters, adjusting the laptop lid for people's heights, and paying attention to the Zoom chat to make sure that the virtual tech doesn't have something to share with you or you with them. So does everyone get that about stopping screen share for a remote presenter? You've got an on-site presenter, they finish the presentation, you hit escape, and it brings you here, and you notice that instead of pre-recorded, it says remote. So that's when you're going to want to return to session display, hit escape twice, and then stop your share once that floating meeting toolbar comes back. Once you stop the share, they're going to share their screen. Now, it is not necessary to mute your mic on the lectern laptop or turn off the camera. Leave them both on. There's not going to be any feedback in the room. I think we've only seen that happen one time, but we work with the AV team ahead of time so that they set their sound in a very specific way that prevents feedback from Zoom. So leave the mic unmuted and leave the camera on. The reason I'm asking you to do this is because invariably you will forget to unmute it and to turn the camera back on. What this means, though, is that all of the microphones in the room are tied to that Zoom mic. So when there's a remote presenter presenting, sometimes people at the head table think this is a good time to chat, and they're right in front of the microphone. So just be aware of that. If you see a chair chatting to another chair or wanting to chat to you, just please be sure that you're not doing it directly in front of the microphone, because everyone in the virtual audience will hear what you're saying, and then that will be interrupting the remote presenter. But we should all be paying attention to the remote presenter anyway. Okay, let's see where we are next. Okay,
Tracy,
so
before you start the next bit, can I just check? So going back to this bit here, where if they press escape after the end of that presentation, and then they see, you know, either a pre-recorded or a remote presenter coming up next, they then return to that.
Wait, if they see a pre-recorded presentation, all they have to do is hit next presentation and it will immediately start playing. It's only if it's a remote presenter do they return to the session display page.
And will that blue text actually say remote presenter instead of
It will.
pre-recorded?
It will.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then they will then click this screen that you've got right now. They will then click the second presentation, and then it will start the remote.
No,
or do they
I'm
need
sorry.
to action anything?
Thank you for interrupting me, because what I forgot to share with you is that the remote presenter will share their own screen. So you will not, it does look like that there is a presentation loaded here, right? Because there's not red letters that would normally say file missing, click here to upload. In this instance, at this particular meeting at, you can see it was Goldschmidt last year, we had remote presenters upload their presentation in advance, just in case they had trouble sharing their screen. We have not asked the ISA presenters remote presenters to do that. So it will say remote next to their name, but there will not be a presentation. But most likely there will not be a presentation there. So you will want to stop share, not click on their presentation slot at all. Just click stop share. That remote presenter will be there in the meeting and will share their own screen with their presentation. That's
Thank
correct.
you.
Yes, your own device joined to Zoom is so that you can be a communicator to the virtual tech, and the virtual tech can communicate with you. And so that you can see what the virtual audience sees, adjusting the laptop lid to according to the person's height. And if you have headphones, to hear what is being said in the virtual. I don't, you know, I would say that if I was a volunteer and I brought headphones so I could make sure that everything sounds okay in the room, I don't know that I would leave my headphones on the entire time. You know, because it kind of takes you away from what's going on in the room on site. So put your headphones on, you can hear everything sounds fine. And then be present for what's happening on site.
Sorry, Tracy, I've got another question.
Sure.
With the remote delegates, if they put a question in the chat, is that Okay.
Okay, let's see. Okay, so then you're at the end of the session, we're gonna end the session. What's different here is what I have here is leave meeting, but it's actually going to say end meeting. And usually, and this is the lectern laptop, okay, not your own laptop. For your own laptop, you're just going to leave meeting. For the lectern laptop, the virtual tech support is going to pass host control to the lectern laptop. And they're doing that because they're going to have to go join another meeting before this meeting ends. So instead of seeing leave meeting, it's going to say end meeting. But what you'll do is when the last presentation is over, you click escape once. That brings you back to the session display page, right? And then hit escape again to bring back that floating meeting toolbar. And then you'll click stop share and then end meeting. Okay. And then what you're going to do is advance to the next session. And you do that by using this arrow next to the date and time of the session. Okay, so before I move on to instructions for volunteers that will be in the last session at the end of the day, does anyone have any questions?
Yes, sorry. Hi, I have a quick question. So just to be clear, every time that someone finishes their presentation, we go back to the podium and then click on the next presentation for them. Is that right? Or is that something they do themselves?
Or the chair could do it too, because the chair may want to introduce each presenter. So just let the chair will probably pick it up right away, but just let them know that they just hit escape. And when they do, it brings you to this page. And then they will just click next presentation. If you see that the next presentation is the remote presenter, you might want to just get up there and intervene and take the next steps so that you can stop share and let the remote presenter share their screen.
All
But
right.
since the moderator, or since the chair will be doing introductions, you might want to just instruct them, to get to the next presentation. All you need to do is hit escape and then click next presentation.
By the way, the chairs will be getting this recording, and the tip sheet will also be in every room.
Yes, at the lectern. The tip sheet will be at the lectern.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
Just in regards to things running over and you have a session that you've got to go to in another room, how do you manage that situation if people won't stop talking?
Yep. I would say, and this is for the chairs, for the recording for the chairs, if the session is running late and you need to go to another room to start a Zoom, the chairs will need to end the meeting. You should go ahead and go to your session, your next session that you're going to be volunteering for, and let the chair end the meeting on the lectern laptop, which will be clicking escape twice, clicking stop share, and then end meeting.
And Tracy, I imagine if the chair fails to do that, the volunteer coming in for the next session can
Yep.
actually do that. They'll
Right.
be able to tell by what's on the screen on the lectern laptop.
Mhm.
So in short, yes, go to your next session when you need to.
Yes. So one caveat that I want to throw at you is I have mentioned several times that if you click escape twice, it brings back the floating meeting toolbar. We have a lovely feature built into our podium presentation management software that allows presenters to use presenter view so that they can see their notes while they're presenting. So this is a box that they would check in the speaker ready room when they go to upload their presentation. There'll be a box that says, I would like to see my notes in presenter view. If they click that box, when you go to click on their presentation title and it opens their presentation, it will open their presentation in presenter view on the lectern laptop. But of course, on the projection screen, everyone will see it in full slideshow mode. If someone is presenting in presenter view, you do have to click escape twice to get out of presenter view. And because you click escape twice, the keys are mapped very specifically, it will bring back that floating meeting toolbar. And you will then have to go to the More button and choose Hide Floating Meeting Controls.
So just to clarify, there's the screen on the laptop and then there's the projection screen. So the presenter can see their notes on the laptop, but we don't want the audience to be seeing the notes on the projection screen.
Right, but you don't have to do anything, Sally, it's automatic. So if this just happens automatic. So if they have chosen in speaker ready room when they uploaded their presentation, if they have clicked this box that says, I want to see my notes in presenter view, there's nothing that anyone else has to do. I'm just letting you know that if you do see someone using presenter view at the lectern laptop, and again, you'll be sitting right next to it, you see notes on there. When you go to escape out of their presentation, you will have to hit escape twice just to exit it. And hitting escape twice will bring back that floating meeting toolbar, which you'll then again have to hide. But in terms of, screens and things like that, all of that happens automatically. You see,
Okay.
yeah, there's nothing you have to do.
So it's just a different process that's done at the end of their presentation.
Yes, that is it.
Someone's just asked a good question in the chat.
Yes.
How do we work out in advance whether there's going to be recorded presentations in a session? Does that show up on the program with a little icon?
You mean whether there's a pre-recorded presentation?
Yes.
I don't know that that will show up on the meeting app.
So the only way
it'll just show up on this session display page.
Okay.
Yeah.
I could probably get a list from Darcy maybe to share.
Yeah.
Or, like if there's only going to be a small number, I can let people know where they are and in what room. I'll make a note to do that.
That would be great, Sally. Because if there is a remote presenter, they'll you'll be wanting to look for them to show up in Zoom. Now, of course, our Convex virtual text will also be looking for them and making sure that they can share their screen.
The remote ones definitely show up on the program if they're correct, but it's the pre-recorded ones we're talking about. Yeah,
right.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you see one listed as pre-recorded, and you will see it, if there's one that is pre-recorded, you will see it noted as such in blue to the left of their last name. If you did have time before the session started, that could be one that you might want to check and press play. And we'll be doing these things too, you know, checking audio for these presentations. So please do not feel stressed on checking presentations before your session starts, because you are going to have a limited amount of time.
I think that's a good point to say that whilst this may all seem like too much and a bit overwhelming, we've just got a lot of detail here. Like once they do it once, they'll be okay. And also there'll be people around that can help them out if needed, that type of thing.
That's right. So we will have people going around to all of the rooms before each session starts to check in, to make sure that A, there's a volunteer there, and B, you've started the Zoom, and C, do you have any questions?
Someone's just asked a question, but we can't hear you. So whoever that was, if you want to put something in the chat. Or it may have been interference from something. Maybe keep moving forward, Tracy, and they can put something in the chat.
So I'm just going to tell you about for the volunteers at the end of the day. You're in the very last session and your session has ended. What we would like you to do, which should not take that long at all, okay, is to click on a push button, which actually, have we decided, Andy, that we're going to do that? Click on the push button, or, okay. At the bottom of the screen will be a little yellow circle or a little green circle, and you'll just right click on it and click start. And that's going to push all of our recordings to our server. And given that you all will be in the rooms already, it will be much more efficient for you to push that button than for just the two of us to run out to 54 meeting rooms and push that button. So there'll be a little push button at the bottom right of the screen. It's a little circle, little dot, and you just right click on it and then click start. And that's all you have to do for that step. And then the next thing that we would ask you to do is advance to the next day's presentations. And you do that by clicking on the date and time. So as soon as you hover over the date and time, it turns blue. It's a hyperlink. And it brings you to this page. You're going to choose the next day. And then it's going to give you a list of sessions. Just click on the first session, and then you'll be at a session display. Now, one reason that we're asking you to do this is so that we can sync all of the files that have been uploaded by presenters in the speaker ready room that day for the next day. Yep, so you'll notice here that one presentation has not been uploaded, and it will say file missing, click here to upload. So, but if you just wait a couple of minutes, then files will sync over from the speaker ready room to the meeting room. Now, that doesn't mean that every presentation that has the red letters, file missing, click here to upload, will go away, but some of them will. And it'll change to the words, click here to change. So what I haven't told you about is how to upload a presentation in the meeting room, because you can upload presentations in the speaker ready room, and that speaker ready room is networked to all of the rooms, all of the meeting rooms. And you also have the ability to upload presentations in the meeting room. I do not recommend that you allow anyone to upload a presentation in the meeting room, given that you only have 10 minutes in between sessions. The only time that you would want to allow someone to upload a presentation in the meeting room is the very first presenter runs into the room right before the session starts and says, oh my gosh, I didn't have time to get to speaker ready room. I just got off my flight, whatever it is, and I want to upload my presentation. Then you would click to the left of their last name where it says file missing, click here to upload. And it's a 3-step process and it walks you right through it, which I can show you that in a few minutes. If it's the second presenter or the third presenter or anyone else in that session, just tell them, I'm really sorry, but we do have to get the session started. You're going to have to go to speaker ready room, and it's not far from the meeting rooms. There's 2 speaker ready rooms in the MCEC and 1 in the Crown. You just tell them that they'll have to go to the speaker ready room and upload their presentation. And once they do, it takes about 2 minutes for it to sync from the speaker ready room to the meeting room. And there will be plenty of time for them to do that while the session is rolling before their presentation starts. So at the end of the day, we would just appreciate if you would click that push button and then advance to the next day's sessions and let the files sync over. And what you will see is you'll see something show up at the bottom of the screen, and I'm so sorry I don't have a picture of it, but it'll say synchronizing. And then once it turns to idle, then you know everything has sunk over. And like I said, you'll see some of those red letters change from file missing, click here to upload, to click here to change. Does that make sense for everyone so far? I can go back here. So you just click on the date and time, and as soon as you do, it turns blue and it brings you over here to a drop-down menu where you can choose the next day. As soon as you choose the next day, it loads all of the sessions for that room, just for that room, for that day. You'll click on the first session, wait about 2 minutes, wait for something to show up that'll say synchronizing, and it's not going to, synchronizing will not show up, that word and the symbol will not show up right away. It'll maybe like 30 seconds, 60 seconds, it'll say synchronizing, and then it'll turn to idle. And you know that presentations have been loaded. And
Tracy,
then, yes.
if for some reason someone doesn't do this step at the end of the session and a volunteer comes into a room the next day and they haven't been put across, they would be doing this step at the start of their shift in that room, which is why it's good to get there early on the first shift of the first day.
That's right. So the very last thing that we would like you to do after you click the push button and sync files, which takes 2 minutes, is we would like you to go through the presentation files in that room for those sessions for the next day. And again, that's as simple as clicking on the presentation slot and opening the presentation file, and then hitting escape, and then next presentation. Looks like my arrow is floating where it's not supposed to be. And then you would just do that again. Click on the first presentation, it brings it up, click escape, click next presentation. Next presentation comes up and loads, click escape. Now, 1% of the time, Podium, our software Podium, will not launch a file. And there are several different reasons why it doesn't happen. One reason may be that the presenter has put their PowerPoint in read-only format. And so no one can read it. No one can see it. And at that point, we need to get a hold of the presenter and actually have them unlock it. Or maybe there are a bunch of really weird, odd characters that they've put in their file name that can prevent Podium from launching their file. So if you get a message that says podium cannot launch this file, we would really appreciate it if you would just take note of the person's last name and the room that you're in and bring that to the speaker ready room in the MCEC, which would be SP201, or the speaker ready room in the Crown, which would be M7. Again, this happens 1% of the time. It is pretty stressful though if it happens in the middle of a session. If you get that message that says podium can't launch this file, and everyone says, oh my God, what are we going to do? Well, if it happens in the middle of a session, there's nothing we can do to fix it in that moment, but we can give you information on how to bypass it and still play that presentation. And if everybody has downloaded that cheat sheet that Sally put in the chat for you, then you'll see on there's a second page actually that shows you how to bypass this. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on 1 second here. Let's see. Thanks for your patience. Okay. Okay. So if, oh, I don't think I shared my screen. That would be helpful to share. Okay. If you get the message that says podium cannot launch this presentation, click to the left of their last name where it says click here to change, and it brings this uploading box here. That's how people can upload presentations in the meeting room. But instead of clicking browse, you're going to click edit. And when you click edit, it's going to bring you into PowerPoint edit mode. Okay. When it brings you into PowerPoint edit mode, at the top of the screen, you'll see the projection screen icon, which is also, it's the icon that is used for putting the presentation in full slideshow mode. So if you get the error message that says podium can't launch this file, we're going to click to the left of their last name where it says click here to change. We're going to click edit, and then we're going to click on that screen icon, and it will play it in presentation mode. The virtual audience will be able to see it. The on-site audience will be able to see it, and we're still going to get it recorded. So that's our bypassing that issue that, like I said, happens 1% of the time, but I want you to be prepared on what to do if we see that. So that's one reason I'm asking volunteers at the end of the day to go through the presentation files for that room in those sessions for the next day. As soon as you see the first slide load for a presentation, you know that it's going to load successfully. You do not need to go through the whole presentation. And that's why this takes very little time. Clicking on the presentation slot, it takes about 2 seconds to load the first slide. As soon as it loads, you hit escape, and then you hit next presentation. First slide loads successfully, hit escape, hit next presentation. First slide loads successfully, hit escape. You see? So you should be able to finish it, honestly, within 10 minutes, going through the presentation slides for the next days.